After months and months of waiting, we finally made it to opening week of the Sacramento Kings season, and this is your final Kings preview as my partner from ABC 10, Kevin John, joins me right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News, where I work every day with my guest today, Kevin John. Kevin and I you see us featured on ABC 10 content covering the Sacramento Kings, on our Toyota Sports Extra show on Sunday nights, covering high school football together, right? So this will be our, I believe, fourth Kings season covering this team together. So I had to have him on for our final Kings preview, right? Kevin and I are going to discuss a number of things, from like who should start in Keegan Murray's place on opening night Wednesday in Phoenix. We had a really good conversation at the end of this interview where we started talking about like who is the leader, like the captain of this team, the locker room leader, the vocal leader on this group. So really good stuff, really fun final preview. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to respond and jump in on the conversation and be involved in the things that Kevin and I discuss, feel free to. You can hit me on Twitter at MattGeorgeSack, email me mattgeorgesports@gmail.com, or leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. But please enjoy this final Kings season preview with ABC 10's Kevin John. It is opening week of the Sacramento Kings season. What is this season going to be like? We have no idea. That's one of the things that makes this Kings team intriguing, I guess. People are curious about them, especially now with the Russell Westbrook addition. It begins on Wednesday against the Phoenix Suns. Kevin, the Kings are in a way limping into this season. No Keegan Murray for the first 4 to 6 weeks, around 10 to 17 games. No Domantas Sabonis for at least the first two, although I'll be surprised to see him suit up against the Lakers on Sunday. Not exactly the best way to start this season, but if there's anything that the Sacramento Kings need to get used to, I think it's dealing with adversity, because I have a feeling as good as Doug Christie is as a motivator and as much talent is on this roster, they're going to go through some highs and lows this year, to say the least.
Matt, I don't think that is necessarily a great way to start off the season. The reason I say that
No.
is coming into every season, every team has a high level of optimism, high level of hope, high level of faith. This is our year. And granted, I'm not saying anyone came into this season saying the Kings are going to win the Larry O'Brien trophy, but there's a high level of optimism coming in each year. It's funny. This is one of the first years that I've covered the Kings. We're coming in up until, 3 days away from opening night for the Kings. There's not really a high level of optimism or hope like there has been in years past. And I think that's scary because, like you said, it's kind of exciting. Obviously, the Kings just acquired Russell Westbrook through free agency a few days ago. First ballot Hall of Famer, 9-time All-Star, former league MVP, 2-time All-Star game MVP. I mean, his resume is longer than a CVS receipt. So we know what this man can do. But then again, you're bringing in a 36-year-old aging point guard that's clearly past this prime, who struggles with shot selection. And I almost feel like, Matt, it's more exciting to have Russell there for his intangibles, him being an emotional leader, him being a firecracker who can motivate this team, him being somebody that's going to put it all out there, live by Russ, die by Russ, whatever you want to call it. But he's somebody that brings this emotional energy that I have not seen from any Kings player, Matt, over the last 3 years. I've been covering this team regularly. So while, yes, if the question is about, okay, what is an aging veteran point guard going to bring to this team? No, we're not expecting Russell to come in here and take the Kings to the promised land, or to come in here and average a triple-double like he's done 4 other times in his career. They're expecting Russ to come in here, be the backup point guard to Dennis Schroeder, and be that veteran presence and give that emotional leadership that this Kings team so desperately needs.
Yeah, what he can do is he establishes the culture, and that's really, we talked about this a lot in Locked On Kings over the last week. That's what he's here to do, right? And there's a reason why when you read the statement that Kings general manager Scott Perry put out when it was official that Russell Westbrook was here, one of the first things Scott talks about is how hard that Russell Westbrook plays and the type of leader that he is and how he can set an example for the culture that they're trying to build here in Sacramento. That's why Russell Westbrook is here. That being said, he also does have a lot to give on the court, or at least he believes so. He scoffed today at the idea that this would be his last year in the league. He still plays with a chip on his shoulder, despite the fact that this is his 18th season, and he doesn't really have too much else to prove, I think, at all, based off the career that he's had. But he obviously still feels disrespected in a way, and he brought up immediately too. He was asked what intrigued him the most about this Kings roster, and without hesitation, he said how much people doubt us. So I think there is a attitude that he brings to this team that is desperately needed. The problem is, though, like we saw during the preseason, like we saw in training camp, these guys can say all the right things, and they can look good in practice, look good in training camp. With the exception of that Laker game, and that was a great way to end the preseason. The Kings finally hit shots in that game. The other three, it looked ugly, it looked disjointed, and what concerns me the most is shots weren't falling. And that's what I think, when you're looking at a roster that is, by the way, now with Russell Westbrook on it, the third oldest roster in the NBA, that has Russ on it, that has DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Domantas Sabonis, you think, okay, offense. Of course, Doug Christie wants this team to be better defensively, but offense is what has to carry them. Well, if this team's going to shoot in the low 30s, I think they barely beat or cracked 30% thanks to that Laker game from three-point range. If the offense is going to struggle that way from the perimeter, even regardless of Russell Westbrook being here, and he's not known for his three-point shooting, might be a long year for the Sacramento Kings if they can't get going on that side of the ball.
Absolutely. I mean, you go back to their first preseason game, I believe it was against the Toronto Raptors.
Yep.
What was that? The Wednesday before last. And I remember the starting five out of there. I believe Domantas was the only one. I think he had 19 or something that game. He played around 20 minutes or so. But a lot of the other starters played 20-plus minutes. 2 of 9 from the field. 2 of 10 from the field. 1 of 8. And meanwhile, you have Toronto who shooting the lights out of the... By the way, any team who comes in the Golden One Center likely
Always
shoots the lights out of the Kings.
Always.
Don't know what it is.
Frustrating.
Yeah, but... You know, you look at all of these guys and just the struggles from the start. And you could say it's preseason. Maybe they're not really looking for their shot. Or, I mean, you could say whatever you want to say about it being preseason. But, Matt, you're absolutely right. That is very concerning. It's one thing to be defensively minded. Doug Christie has preached 94 feet all throughout training camp. And bringing that defensive intensity, which Doug Christie obviously was known for as a player. And Matt, I'm all for that. I'm all for being defensive-minded, defense first. It's the old cliche, offense wins games, defense wins championships. We see that all the time. But you got to know how to score. Oklahoma City has incredible rim protectors, is really good around the rim, played some incredible defense, but guess what OKC also has? They have great offense, which is why they are the reigning NBA champions. And I say that to say, Matt, this team could be effective defensively, but if you don't have guys who can knock down, like when you think right now, who are our knockdown three-point shooters right now on the Sacramento Kings? Who are the guys that are shooting 40+% from three-point range, who you can depend on night in and night out? I don't know if I can tell you who that is.
And Zach LaVine, hopefully. Keon was it last year, but...
Domantas Sabonis was actually shooting good from three-point at some point, but he's obviously not a three-point shooter.
Not during preseason, though.
Yeah, not during, and he struggled. You know, Doug McDermott got hot a few times last year from three, but we know that's obviously not an option. But when you just look at this team and the makeup of it, I mean, yes, I love the pick-and-roll game. I love Domantas, the offense going through him. But when you look at, Matt, what is effective and what is going to be, what they can consistently rely on night in and night out, Matt, I can honestly say that I've learned their offensive identity through these 4 preseason games.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's going to take them clearly more time to figure that out, especially now that they have the injuries. That's a bit of a setback, and this schedule doesn't wait for them, right? They have the 2 games to start the season, Phoenix and Utah, 2 very gettable games. Then the Lakers come in, and over the course of their first 20 games, they have OKC 3 times. They've got Denver 3 times. They got Minnesota a couple times. Like, it's a brutal start to the season, and the Kings got to be careful. They could find themselves out of the race before they even get in it while they're starting to learn each other and catch up. This episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That is where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payments into real rewards that you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you and your entire neighborhood. With Built, your rent finally works for you. You're earning points every month on something that you already have to pay. And whether you're grabbing food at your favorite local restaurant or heading to the gym, you will still be earning rewards. Built has made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. You can turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnba, and make sure that you use that link so they know that we sent you. And Locked On Kings is also brought to you by Skims. When I found out that Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family, so I had to give it a try, and let me tell you, it lives up to the hype. You can find a million issues with your underwear, right? Whether it's fit, comfort, or just finding the right style for you. And Skims changes all of that. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of both comfort and style. I tried the Skims Stretch 5 boxer briefs. I'm hooked. I got like 6 pairs of them. They are perfect for my active lifestyle. They move with me. I never lose their shape. They stay in place all day long, whether I'm working out, playing golf, just running errands, chasing my kid around. They're the most comfortable and reliable underwear I have ever owned. Plus, the lightweight material makes you feel amazing. It's almost like you're wearing nothing at all. Shop SKIMS Mens at skims.com. Let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select Locked On Kings in the drop-down menu that follows. I have 2 lineup-related questions for you. And the first one is, we know for sure Domantas Sabonis isn't playing, but he's going to be back sooner than later. We know Keegan's going to be out for a while, and we were very curious in the final couple games of preseason of what is Doug Christie thinking about who's starting in Keegan's spot. Let me ask you, if you're setting the lineups for this season opener in Phoenix, again, it's weird because Domantas Sabonis isn't playing, but we all assume Drew Eubanks is going to start in Sabonis' place. Who are you starting at the 4 right now to replace? You can't really replace Keegan because there's nobody on this roster that can do what Keegan does. But who are you starting in place of Keegan Murray right now if you're making that call?
You guys may call me crazy as a result of this, and you may call me crazy because this guy's a rookie, but I think Nick Clifford is somebody who is phenomenal.
I can't call you crazy. I said the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what he did, obviously, in the Lakers game, but this is somebody, and granted, he's an older rookie, so I shouldn't say he's like some young 18, 19-year-old rookie. Yeah, he's a 24-year-old rookie, played at Colorado State. Obviously, he has a high basketball IQ. So when you say he's, a rookie, he's older than actually quite a few rookies actually, he's older than some second, third-year players in the NBA. So I feel that he has shown, not just through Summer League, but through the preseason games, that he understands the game. Mm-hmm. The decisions that he makes out there as far as passing, when to shoot, backside, picking up defensive assignments and whatnot. When you see him playing out there, he does not look like somebody who's a, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed.
Right.
He seems very comfortable with the game. He seems very poised with the game. So I know a lot of people may disagree with inserting him into the starting lineup because of the fact that he's a rookie. But I think that Nick Clifford has shown a lot throughout the preseason, throughout training camp, throughout summer league, that this guy is ready to go. And if I'm Doug Christie, I am inserting him into the starting lineup.
Yeah, the primary argument against that, though, is he's 6'6", and that would leave you with 6'6" DeMar DeRozan, 6'6" Nick Clifford, 6'5" Zach
Small ball.
LaVine. Yeah, you're definitely small versus when you have like 6'10" Dario Saric that's available or 6'9" Isaac Jones. I'm with you. I think Nick Clifford is the guy who's closest to replicating what Keegan Murray can do, but I do understand if Doug Christie's like, I don't feel comfortable going that small right out the gate. So we'll have to see. Dario Saric was his first choice in that game 3 against the Los Angeles Clippers to start. And to be fair, the start of that game for the Kings against the Clippers, that was the best part of that game, their first like 8 or so minutes before they went to the bench. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that. The other lineup question I wanted to ask you, though, is we saw Nick Clifford start against the Lakers. He looked really, really good. He had 7 assists in that game. It was a great game for everybody. Keon Ellis shined. The Kings were hitting shots in that game. Dennis Schroeder led the Kings in scoring. So it wasn't just the Nick Clifford show, but Nick looked really good in that starting lineup. But he was there because DeMar DeRozan didn't play in that game. I don't know how Doug Christie, with any confidence, can say, hey, DeMar, future Hall of Famer, multi-time All-Star, I need you to go to the bench so this 24-year-old rookie can start in your place. I don't know how Doug can do that without feeling like he's going to get torn to shreds. And maybe DeMar handles it great, maybe he doesn't. I have no idea. Do you think, regardless of how Doug feels, DeMar feels, anybody feels about it, do you think the Kings should consider that, or it's DeMar DeRozan, he's starting?
There's two ways I look at that. First things first, you talked about DeMar, obviously first ballot Hall of Famer, has over 25,000 career points. Somebody who is a bucket, and we saw that last year up close and personal. But Matt, this is another thing that I would say to you. There are a lot of players later in their careers, Hall of Famers, who have elected to come off the bench. One of them are the guy that the Kings just acquired a few days ago, who later in his career came off the bench. Carmelo Anthony later in his career, who was a bucket, came off the bench. So, it's not out of the norm to have somebody of that caliber come off the bench if it is better for the team. Obviously, DeMar DeRozan, as great as he is, he's past this prime. He's on the down. Now, he's still a great player. He can still go out there and get you 20 a night. Mm-hmm. But if it is for the betterment of the team, Matt, this wouldn't be unprecedented to have somebody like DeMar DeRozan come off the bench. The question is, would DeMar DeRozan want to come off the bench? Mm-hmm. And is that the reason why he came to Sacramento, which obviously that was over a year ago, but would he be happy with his role of coming off the bench if it is to better the team? And who knows, maybe putting DeMar in that second unit with Malik Monk or whatnot, maybe is a really good combination that can get that second unit going. Who knows? But I'm not opposed to DeMar DeRozan coming off the bench if you did want to go, if you wanted to insert Nick in there and then maybe put some more length or size or whatnot in the forward positions in order to get you that length. But it's not something, Matt, it's not something I'm gung-ho about, but it's not something I have a problem with, if that makes sense.
A lot of fans have been in the comment section or have reached out to me and are struggling with, like, give me a reason to watch. Give me something to be excited about that goes beyond just on a day-to-day basis. And honestly, that might be how you need to get through this season, is just go and enjoy it game to game, day to day. I remember when Vince Carter was here, and the Sacramento Kings weren't very good that year, but Vince Carter being here would give us some fun moments to help get us through. I remember when Vince Carter and the Kings beat LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and it's like, okay, that's a game you just latch onto and enjoy because the majority of the season was frustrating. I hope that's not the year that the Sacramento Kings have. I do think this is a team that can fight to be right around that 500 range. But I'll ask you, obviously we are obligated because of our jobs. We're fortunate enough to be paid to cover this team. So we have to watch. We have to pay attention. But what is it from curiosity standpoint or fan standpoint that is like, this gets me to watch this team every day, or this would intrigue me if I were a fan, this is what I would tune in to see every single day?
Well, I think first things first, the acquisition of Russell Westbrook. Yeah. You know that guy is fun to watch for better or for worse, because you know he's going to go out there and give you something, whatever that may be. He may chuck up a three from 40 feet out, but then the next possession he may still dunk and rile up the crowd. I mean, he's somebody who you know you're going to be entertained from. So I would kind of use that in a way, kind of like you used the Vince Carter, who at the time was on his way to the Hall of Fame when he came over here. By the way, I believe he had a game high in points that night too against the Cleveland Cavaliers in that game. But anyway, so you know you have a player like that. Also, if I'm the Kings and I'm looking to get excited, obviously the rookies, you know, Nick Clifford, watching his development, seeing what he can do. Maxime Reynaud. I know Maxime Reynaud is not heavy in the rotation at this point in time, and probably will not see a lot of time, which is fine. But I mean, we got to see him a lot in Summer League, and he impressed. You know, and in addition to that, I would also say too, you know, Keegan Murray, and I know he's out for the next 4 to 6 weeks, or he'll be reevaluated, in 4 to 6 weeks. So we may not see him till the end of November.
God, I hope not.
Or whatnot. But I'm also excited about Keegan, just his development. I mean, you just saw the Kings gave him that, 4-year extension?
5-year.
Or 5-year extension, excuse me. So continuously seeing Keegan's development, is he going to turn into one of these top two-way players in the league that we've seen? Is he going to turn into what the Kings envision him to be? So he's somebody else that gets me excited, even though Keegan never shows excitement, literally at all. I hope Russell Westbrook, his intensity rubs off on Keegan. So at least we could see Keegan crack a smile from time to time. But, you know, that's something else that gives me excitement too. And then also when you have a Levine and a DeRozan, two guys that high caliber players, multi-time all-stars, each of them, they can play above, at least Zach can play above the rim. You know, that's always something to give you a little bit of excitement and whatnot. But Matt, am I expecting this team to go out there and win 55 or 60 games? Absolutely not. Am I expecting them to win 50 games? Absolutely not. You know, I mean, I'm a realist. So like you, I just want to enjoy what I see from this team, especially the young players, because as we know, the young players are the future. 5 years from now, we're not going to be talking about DeMar DeRozan, Russell Westbrook, Zach LaVine, maybe even not even Domantas Sabonis. So, you know, just seeing some of these young guys and the way that they develop and whatnot is exciting because that's the future.
I need Keegan Murray to pick up a technical foul this year. I need it to happen.
Get an ejection, not a techno. Get Keegan ejected.
I need it to happen in Sacramento, though. It would be the most Keegan Murray thing to get a technical foul in like the second quarter in Charlotte when nobody cares, and it's like the most boring technical foul. I need him to get hot, and I need him to get a tech in Sacramento because that entire Golden One Center will pop for him just to show that emotion and hit that moment. So if there's anything I can ask for this year, in addition to making the playoffs and all that fun stuff, Keegan Murray get a technical foul this year at the very least. I would love to see it. You mentioned the expectations, win totals, things of that nature, and we've been trying to ballpark for a while. I think most people that you talk to seem to think this team is in that mid to high 30s range, which probably is fighting for like the last play-in spot. This team has more than enough talent to be better than that, but the Western Conference is what it is, and it doesn't matter how talented you are, you have to find a way to make the group be cohesive, and that's the big question is, can Doug Christie turn this roster that's kind of like the island of misfit toys? Can he turn it into the
Expendables?
The Expendables. Can he turn it into a talented basketball team in a very difficult Western Conference that works together? This episode of Locked On Kings is also brought to you by Mint Mobile. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with a high-speed data, unlimited talk and text delivered to the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number and your contacts. You're getting the same quality service that you had before, but for a fraction of the price. The setup is super easy. You keep your numbers and then you're running in minutes. If you're ready to say yes to saying no, make the switch at mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Upfront payment of $45 is required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for just 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. In terms of like expectations for you, where are you at with this team, whether it's win total, making the playoffs, missing the playoffs? Just if you had a crystal ball in front of you, prediction time, my gut feeling says this is how this season's going to go. This is where this team's going to end up.
Man, I'm going to give them 40 games. They're going to be 40 wins, 40 and 42.
So just under 500.
Just under 500. I think that they're going to fall into that play-in range. And when I say play-in range, I see them between 8 and 8 and 10.
Yeah.
They're not going to be a top 6 seed. I don't see them falling out of the play-in, being 11 through 16 or 11 through 15.
11 through 15. Yeah.
11 through 15. Excuse me. I don't see them falling that low. This team is basically just has play-in stamped on their face, kind of like they were the last couple of years. Unless, I would love to be wrong. We don't know what the trade deadline is going to bring. We don't know if that's going to change some things up. We really don't know. That'll be an interesting thing. Once again, we clearly saw how active the Kings were this last trade deadline. Right. So obviously that will have an impact on their record. But Matt, I see them around 40 games. You have a very difficult Western Conference, a very talented Western Conference. Think about the team who eliminated the Kings last year from the play-in, Dallas, is only going to be better this year. They got the number 1 pick, obviously, and healthy players coming back. And then you look at the usual suspects: Minnesota, OKC, Denver, who's going to be in the mix. And then the 2 LA teams. I can never get a feel for them any year. You don't know how the 2 LA. But I think the 2 LA teams are probably going to be better than the Kings this year, just if we're being real with each other.
They're supposed to be.
Yeah, at least they're supposed to be. And then you have other teams out there like Houston, who acquired KD. We don't know what they're going to be. Phoenix obviously got a bunch of new players and from Houston in that KD trade.
Don't forget San Antonio.
And San Antonio, who completely fell off last year. They're returning this year with a healthy Wemby, healthy De'Aaron, Stephon Castle, et cetera, et cetera. It's hard. That's what 6 teams right there, Matt. Yeah. I think I just named, or 5, 6, 7, whatever, who I think are going to be above the Kings. So it's just, I don't know. And it goes back to something I said earlier, Matt. In training camp, all I heard Doug Christie talk was identity, culture. And going into this regular season kickoff for the Kings, which will be Wednesday night, I don't think this team has an identity. And I think for me to call them a playoff team, which is a top 6 seed, a guaranteed playoff spot, I think they have to have an identity, and I just don't see that right now.
Yeah, there's just a lot of uncertainty with this team, but what is it, if anything, that you're most confident in with this group?
I'm most confident that this team will play hard defensively. I really feel that, Matt. And I know that we did not see that a lot in the preseason. Oof. I know that is an eye roller, but I am confident that defensively, Doug Christie is going to get into this team. I firmly believe that in my heart. They got a lot of tape to look at from the preseason. They can look at a lot of their flaws, their woes, things of that sort. But I just because I know Doug is so defensive minded, and I think about the people that he has on his staff as well. I really, really feel confident, Matt, that this team is going to pick it up defensively, and they're not going to be a bottom 5 defensive team.
But how does Doug Christie preach that accountability and not have the same struggles with the locker room that Mike Brown had? Now, I know it's a different locker room to some extent, and let me be perfectly clear. I've said this before on this podcast. If we hear any rumblings, period, of player X, Y, or Z upset at Doug, or Doug is losing the locker room, then get rid of those players. Like at this point, if they're the common denominator with Mike and now Doug, look, I know Doug's a first-time head coach, but I'm very curious about as the season rolls on, and Doug is the type of coach where he wants the Kings to punch first, not wait to get punched. Mm-hmm. But this team is going to get punched a number of times. It's just going to happen. Like they're going to face adversity, and how they handle adversities, I'm very curious with. And if things start going awry, or if players aren't holding their end of the bargain on that end of the floor defensively, how does Doug deliver that message? How does Doug take one of these high-profile guys and put them on the bench so Keon Ellis can play more minutes or Neek Clifford can play more minutes to prove a point, or that because they're actually willing to do what Doug's wanting to do. I hear what you're saying about the confidence in this group to play hard defensively, and maybe that's just the Doug Christie treatment because Doug is such a great communicator and can relate to players, being a former player himself. I don't want to see this team go through adversity, mind you. I would rather them go 82-0 and have a great year and everything's sunshine and rainbows. But I want to see how Doug handles inevitably when one of his high-profile guys, it doesn't matter who it is, one of his high-profile guys isn't holding up their end of the bargain on defense.
I think first things first, Matt. You got to realize, you talk back about last year and how there were reports that Mike Brown lost the locker room or lost certain players at times. Let me ask you a question, Matt. Who on this team last year was the bona fide leader of the locker room, leader on the court, emotional leader? Who was that bona fide leader last year?
By example, it was De'Aaron.
Okay. By example.
Yeah.
Okay. De'Aaron, to your extent, De'Aaron was there. And what happened in that game against Detroit, where De'Aaron was supposed to close out on the three, and he jumped. I mean, we saw how that ended.
Foul Jaden Ivey, yep.
What did De'Aaron say when he came back into the press conference after that game? And what was his thing that he said?
He said, it doesn't matter. It won't make anybody else feel better.
Exactly. So, and by the way, this is not a shot at De'Aaron. I like De'Aaron. Great player, did some great things with the Sacramento Kings. But to your point, if De'Aaron is your leader and the person that other players are supposed to follow, did he exemplify or utilize his leadership role to the best of his ability last year to get the other guys to buy in? It's a rhetorical question. So the reason I bring that up, Matt, is because this year you had said, well, what happens if Doug Christie loses the locker room? What happens? Because inevitably there will be some adversity. This Kings team will probably go on a 5-game losing streak or 6. There's something that's going to happen.
For sure.
I think the good news, Matt, is you have somebody. First of all, you got a player right now that you just acquired in Russell Westbrook who will hold other players accountable.
So is it him?
He will hold other players accountable.
So De'Aaron was the bona fide, no doubts about it. He was supposed to be the leader last year. And I know it's not all on one person.
Yeah, of course
comes
not.
from everybody. Like Domas has to take some of that.
Yeah.
DeMar takes some of that. But De'Aaron was the head of the snake. He was the leader in that sense. The locker room leader. Is that Russ?
Well, it's tricky because also De'Aaron was here for 7 years.
Sure.
Russ
and he was the star on the team. No doubt he was the best player on the team, and we don't know who the best player on this team is.
Exactly. So, yes, if you're just looking from who is the most acclaimed, highly regarded player on this team that young people will listen to, probably Russell Westbrook. And we know how intense Russell Westbrook is as well, not just on the court, but from the bench as well. So when you have a player like that who can hold other players accountable and who other players revere, because also DeMar DeRozan is another future Hall of Famer.
Right.
But he's not as, if you're comparing his leadership to Russell Westbrook, I wouldn't say DeMar is as vocal as Russell Westbrook is.
No.
Russell will get, you see him coaching from the sidelines.
Right.
Also, in a way, Malik Monk can be very emotional at times.
Sure.
Is he going to hold some of his players accountable? Is he going to be somebody out there? So I say that all to say this, Matt. Yes, Doug, you're 100% right. Doug cannot lose the locker room, but I think when you have veteran players who other players respect and who can hold other players accountable, I think that makes it easier for Doug in his particular position. Obviously, as a head coach, you hold everybody accountable.
Right.
But when you have leaders on the team who can hold other players accountable, that makes things easier and better, and that makes things run smoother, shall I say.
So what about holding themselves accountable, though? And this is the part where I'm not trying to play devil's advocate or be Debbie Downer. It's just like the realities of who these players are. All 4 of those players that you just talked about as leaders in their own right, none of them, well, 3, you mentioned 3 of them. I could even add Levine and Sabonis. So there's 5 guys right there. None of them are known for playing well on the defensive end or playing, particularly being high-end defenders. What Russell Westbrook, in theory, is going to do is he's going to play hard every play. And that's I think, what the Sacramento Kings are intrigued about with him. And that's the area of leadership is no matter what, even if you're not a good defender, you're going to play hard and you're going to give your all on that side. And that's really what Doug Christie is asking. That's where the 94 feet comes from. So maybe that's where you're leaning on Russell Westbrook a lot. But how does DeMar DeRozan hold everybody accountable when DeMar is one of the guys that's getting beat defensively. And I'm not trying to put everything on DeMar. We know how important he is on the offensive end. It's the same thing with Zach LaVine. I think Zach has actually shown a lot of really good signs of defensive ability this preseason. I think he's buying in on that end of the floor. But Zach LaVine has limitations defensively. This entire Kings team, with the exception of really Keon Ellis and Keegan Murray, have defensive limitations. And those two guys aren't necessarily going to be the de facto leaders of this team. So again, I'm not arguing for the sake of I don't believe this team is going to be good. This is just where I'm curious is, what does the leadership look like in that locker room when Doug Christie is preaching defensive accountability, and the biggest voices in that locker room that are supposed to express that defensive accountability aren't good defenders themselves or aren't known for their defense as well? Those are the tricky things where we probably won't ever see it inside the locker room, but we want to see it at least on the court.
It was interesting. One of the starters who you did mention, he's obviously hurt, is Keegan Murray.
Yep.
And if Keegan Murray, like I said, if they envision him to be one of the best two-way players in the league for years to come, that is the one thing I will give you that does hold him back. He's not a leader. He's not a vocal leader. He's not somebody as good as he is. And we all know how great Keegan Murray is. He doesn't have the vocal leader intangible or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Which, to a certain extent, I do believe does hurt the team because he's such a great player that people can look up to, but that's just not him. That's not in his ammo.
De'Aaron didn't really either, though. De'Aaron wasn't much of a vocal leader. He was a leader by example. And he talked trash, but De'Aaron wasn't really that guy either. So
what you do, you mentioned the other guys, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Domantas Sabonis.
Yep.
Domantas is someone who, yes, he's not a super vocal leader. You'll see him at times get intense.
Yeah,
You'll see him call out stuff.
Yeah, he'll talk.
At times. Is he a vocal leader to the extent of, like, I don't know, a Draymond Green or something like that?
No.
Bad example, too, by the way, because of their history. But, yeah, of course not. But I still think that when you talk about, Kevin, well, what are these players going to do that is going to inspire or lead these other players, especially if they're liabilities on the defensive side of the ball? Well, I think for one, you have two players like DeMar and LaVine who can play offensively great, whether it's ISO. Zach is shooting the three ball well, so they can do great things offensively. I think, Matt, where that comes down, or how they lead in per se, or motivate the other guys. If it's not defensively, it's through it's how they're still impacting the game. So if I am DeMar, and I'm not known for my lockdown on-ball defense, obviously not.
Right.
I'm still going to impact the game. Whether I'm going to, shut down the backside, if I'm going to clog the lanes, the passing lane, I'm going to find a way to impact the game if I am not great defensively. Mm-hmm. I may not be like Russell Westbrook, who's just going to go hard out there. Even if I'm not good at something, I'm still going to give it my all. But I'm still going to try to impact the game. If I'm Zach LaVine, I'm still going to try to impact the game one way or another.
Yeah.
I agree with you. None of them are elite defenders. They will never make an all-defensive team. That is 100% true. But I still feel they can impact the game other than just offensively. And I think that even though that none of them are huge defensively, when you still look at what they do and the loads that they carry on the offensive side, I still think that in a way is still inspiring and motivating
for sure.
to the team, even though they lack defensive prowess.
For sure. You're going to need scoring from Zach LaVine without a doubt. If it's crunch time in a close game, that's DeMar DeRozan's time, right? So all these guys still have a tremendous amount of responsibility. On the offensive end, it's just the defensive accountability. If that's going to be the foundation of this Kings team and they're supposed to be the leaders, but they're not known for the defensive end, all right, A plus B equals C. Like how do you make everything work together? So that's what we're very curious about seeing. Well,
they have some bitch guys who are very good in defensively. I mean, you mentioned Keon Ellis, who's not a star. I mean, we've seen him start before, but then again, Keon Ellis, no one's looking at him as a leader.
Right.
So
we'll see what Doug Christie can get out of these guys. It begins on Wednesday in Phoenix against the Suns. Kevin and I will have it covered all season long here on ABC 10. Kev, let's get this roller coaster started.
Absolutely. Let's try to light the beam. I guess it is 40. Are we going to see 40 beams this season?
Hopefully more.
Or 37 or whatever.
God, please more.
We shall see. There's only one way to find out. I think they've been working on the beam too, so we'll see what it brings.